Okay, hello and welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with today's webinar. As it is just about 2 p.m., it looks like my computer clock's a little slow here. All right, so today we're going to be discussing the mass edit function of version 20 of our software, which will be coming out here as soon as possible. We still don't have a release date for those who may be wondering. We don't want to disappoint anybody, so we don't put out a date until we're sure we're ready. And the developers are still working out a few kinks before we send it out to everyone. All right, so again, this is version 20, and we are going to be going over the mass edit function today. So to get to mass edit, we're going to go into membership. And if you haven't sat in on one of these version 20 webinars yet, you're going to notice it looks very different than it used to. But go ahead and watch some of the previous version 20 videos we've already done, and you'll be able to see how to navigate through this new version. For the mass edit, we have to do this from Find. So up here in the top left, I'm going to click on the Find button. And I'm sorry about this. It looks like we're running a little slow on this machine today, so we're just going to do our best with that, and we'll see how it goes. Now, before we get too far into this, I'm actually going to come back out of membership real quick because I want to show you two things that we need to make sure we set up before we get into our mass edit. So the first thing is, if I click on Admin here and I go into Security, we are going to have some options in here as far as the mass edit goes. So if you are using users, this is where you could tell the system that only certain users are allowed to do a mass edit. So I'm going to go ahead and activate one of my users here and give it a password and come over to our membership tab here. And down at the bottom, we have our little mass edit checkbox. And this allows people, if it is checked, then they are allowed to mass edit. And if it's not checked, then that user cannot mass edit. So that's very important if you have a lot of different users and you only want some of them to be able to access the mass edit. All right, so let's go ahead and clear that out. So again, that's just if you are using users. If you don't have any users, it's all one universal login. Don't worry about the security settings. So I'm going to cancel and close out of there. And then the other very, very important setting that you want to make sure is in place before you go about doing any mass edits is also in it's going to be in the settings, but it's going to be in the membership settings. So I'm going to open up membership again, and I'm going to come up here to special functions and go into settings. Now at the very top of settings, we have two settings that are user specific. So like I was just talking about, if you have different users set up, these top two settings are going to be for the specific user who is signed in. Now, the very top option is the absolute most important regarding mass edits. It says backup member file before mass edit. And what this means is that anytime you do a mass edit, right before you do that mass edit, it's going to make a backup. Now, that is a temporary backup, and it'll only last 24 hours from when you do the mass edit. But what this does is it allows you within that window of 24 hours to undo that change you made, just in case you realize later that it was a mistake. And because we're editing so many records all at the same time, whether that's everyone or just a selection, but because it's a bigger group, we have that extra built-in recovery feature. So that's very important. Make sure you back up before you mass edit. All right, so let's close out of here and then we'll get into it. Again, we're going to go into Find. And if you have questions about how Find works, go ahead and go out to our website and take a look at the recorded webinar of how the Find grid works. I'm not going to spend too much time on it today because we have to cover all the mass edit criteria. So for our first mass edit example, I'm going to enroll all of our 5-year-olds in kindergarten. So I'm going to choose age as my search criteria, and I'm going to say equal to 5. I'm going to add my selection and click Find. Oh, I guess I don't have any 5-year-olds. I should have checked this data beforehand. Sorry about that. Let us see if we can get another age group. Let's see here. How about 6-year-olds? Oops. Oh, I guess we don't have many kids, so let's try a different tactic. Let's go ahead and look at our status code. I guess it would help if I could type. There we go, status code. And we're going to look for anyone who doesn't have a status code. So we're going to say not, and we're going to select all. And again, I'm not going to break down my criteria searches too much because that's another topic for another day. So today we're just going to look at all of our folks who have no status code, which is quite a few records. Up here at the top, 62. And so what we're going to do is over here we have our mass edit button. And I'm going to click on the mass edit button. And it's going to ask me what field I would like to mass edit. And I'm going to go ahead and choose that status code because these are all our folks who don't have one. And then what I'll do is I'll choose selected records on the grid or all records if none is selected. And so because I haven't put any check marks on here, that's all records. So all of these records where it has no status code, I'm going to go ahead and fill them all in as potential. And then I can change it later if I need to. So again, on our mass edit, we're going to edit the status code of all the records on the grid. And we're replacing it with potential. So I'm going to click Update Records. It's going to let me know how many people I'm updating and what I'm updating to. And then I can click Yes or No. If I click No, it's not going to make any changes. If I click Yes, it's going to make those changes. We'll get our little scroll bar and it says 62 rows were updated. And it says those rows are highlighted. However, because all of those folks no longer meet our search criteria, they've disappeared. And that tells us our mass edit was successful because it's no longer showing us anyone on this list because everyone on this list has a status code now. So I'm going to click OK. And then if I realize I shouldn't have done that, I wanted to leave some of those blank, what I can do is click my mass edit button again, and I can click this undo last mass edit button. And when I click that, it's going to confirm that I actually want to undo this. And it tells me the date, which is today, and I'm going to say, yes, I do want to undo that. And it says mass edit restore completed successfully. So if I click OK, it's going to gather that data. And look, everybody's back because again, they meet our criteria. Now they do have, or that now they don't have a status code anymore. All right. So the next way that we can use this is if we wanted to go through and select several people. Now we have a field that's called the health record. And so let's say, for example, that we wanted we have a list of all the people who turned in a health record, and we want to go through and edit those folks so that we know that their health record is on file. So I would just scroll down this list and put check marks next to any of the folks that I now have a health record for, but I didn't used to have one. And then I can go to mass edit. And let me see. Looks like, where is it? All right, it looks like it's not displaying right now. That is because the only fields that are mass editable are the ones that are showing right now on this list. So if you scroll left and right, you can see all the different fields that are available. So if I want to mass edit a field that's not showing, I just need to add it to my view. So that's what I'm going to do. Again, if you want to know more about how all of this is done, since I'm just breezing through it, go ahead and watch that Find Grid webinar from last week. It's on our website. All right, so now I can go and pick my health record, and I'm going to say selected records, so that's all those ones that I checked. And I'm going to say now we have a current record for those folks. So I'm going to update the records. And it's going to say those 8 individuals, are you sure? And I'm going to say yes. And now it's going to highlight the rows of those folks. All right. One other option, these last couple we've been filling in fields that are blank, and we've been doing it for either everyone or people that we picked off the list. One final way that we can do this, if I clear out everyone and I click Mass Edit, and let's use this health record again as an example. I can choose instead to select records where a certain criteria is met. So for example, if I wanted to take everyone who doesn't have anything in that box right now. So all these folks, if I slide this out of the way, like Nina, who has nothing for health record. So I'm going to select all and say not. So if the record is not one of those 3 things, I want it to say not provided, because if it's blank, then I probably don't have one. And then I can go back through later and mark who I do have a current health record for. So I'm going to click Update Records. It's going to tell me how many folks, and that's 43, and it's going to be those 43 people do not currently have one of those 3 records, and we're going to change it to 3. So I'm going to click Yes, and it's going to make those changes and highlight all the people who were changed. So there we go. That is how we can do a mass edit to a blank field. Now what we could do, instead, we could select records where, and let's use our health record one more time. Let's say it's the end of the year and we want new health records for everyone. So this time we're going to say those who have a current health record, we're going to change it to expired, and then we're going to get a new one and confirm it all. So I'm going to change select records where the health record is current, and I'm going to replace it with expired. And I'm going to click Update Records, and it's going to tell me that's 11 people, and it's going to change from current to expired. And I'm going to click Yes. And you can see it's made that change. And again, if I realize that was a mistake, I have one opportunity here to undo it. Now, keep in mind with that undo, if you do a mass edit, then go out of the membership file and maybe add some donations, something like that, then you come back and realize your mass edit was wrong. If you were to undo your mass edit at a later time within your 24 hours, you are going to lose any changes you've made since that mass edit. So that's something important to keep in mind. If you do end up needing to undo a mass edit, make sure you're aware that you're going to lose any other changes you made after doing that mass edit. All right. that just about covers all of the information we have for how a mass edit works. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and type them into the questions portion of your webinar panel, and I will answer all those questions. Since we have a few extra minutes, I can show you real quick how I was doing those adjustments to what we're viewing on the find grid. Now you have a couple ways of doing that. You can drag the columns so they're in a different order, and you can go to columns and sorting up here, and I can get rid of information I don't want to see. Let's say, for example, I don't want any of this address information. I just don't need it. So I can move it over to the left-hand side, and then I'm seeing fewer fields when I click OK. It drops off those addresses, and it shows me a few less fields on here. And I can do the same thing in that screen to add new fields. And you can rearrange them using up and down arrows over here. David is asking if all members could be, or all visitors could be changed to members. Absolutely. You can do mass edit for the majority of the field types. However, there are some that are not mass editable because it just is counterintuitive. So, for example, David, you were asking about what is called category, the member category or the visitor category. So if I come into columns and sorting, and John, you're wondering if you can do this for inactive as well, and yes, you can. So I'm going to add those two fields, category and inactive. And we have choices, inactive family or inactive individual. We're going to go with inactive individual. And we want inactive date as well. And we'll click OK. And then if we come into our mass edit, we click the down arrow, we can choose family category, and we could say select records where family category is V for visitor, and change it to M for member. Update records, that's going to get rid of my 29 visitors and turn them into 29 members. And it's going to show us which ones were changed. And there they are. I'll undo that. And let's take a look at inactive. Now, inactive, if you want to go through one by one, you can just check that inactive box, pick a reason from the drop-down, and then give a date. Or you can do a mass edit. You can do it on the date or on the checkbox. And typically, I would think you would want to use the check marks back here before you do a mass edit on inactive. It's probably not something you're going to want to do for all of the records unless you've already done a find to get just the records you're looking for. But yep, you can definitely mass edit both the category and inactive. All right, any other questions? Go ahead and type them in if you got them. I hope that this webinar was helpful. We're really excited to get the version 20 out to everybody. It's got a lot of great new features, much more flexibility, and hopefully it's not too big of a change. I think most of the changes, in my opinion, are very easy to learn because functionality is pretty similar to the current version, just updated with new graphics and some new functions that were missing in previous versions. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions coming in. If you do have questions, type them in. You can feel free to give us a call if you have questions that are specific to your data. We will try and have version 20 out here as soon as possible. And yeah, thank you everybody for taking the time to sit in on this webinar with me, and have a great rest of your day. Again, if you have any more questions, type them into the questions panel. Otherwise, you can go ahead and sign out, and we'll see you at the next webinar. Thanks again.